in all the earth. You have set your glory in the heavens. Through the praise of children and infants, you have established a stronghold against your enemies, to silence the foe and the avenger. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place. What is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. You have made them a little lower than the angels, and crowned them with glory and honor. You made them rulers over the works of your hands. You put everything under their feet, all flocks and herds, and the animals of the wild, the birds in the sky, and the fish in the sea, all that swim in the paths of the seas. Lord, our Lord, how majestic is your name in all the earth. Let's sing.
Praise the Lord the Almighty.
Praise to the Lord the Almighty, the King of creation. Oh, my soul, praise Him, for He is thy help and salvation. All ye who hear, now to His temple draw near. Praise Him in glad
that's even like when we talked about children's music yesterday. He said, how do you write for children in a way that excites children? He says, I write about what I'm passionate about. It makes sense, doesn't it? Our kids, whether they have a 60, 80 or 95% interest in what we're doing, if we're passionate about it, they follow us. Because we make it interesting and we're passionate. So we think about that at the creative level. We think about the music we're passionate about. We think about the themes we're passionate about. Bono, when he was asked, how do you make it in the music industry, said, you write the song that says what you want to say about the world and you build your life on it. So a song has to actually speak into something that is deeply, deeply passionate to us, that we would stake our life on. And it has to be that important. Otherwise, don't write songs. Now, I will say a couple of notes at the start. If you're a hands up how many of our congregational songwriters are writing songs for churches to sing, worship songs, hymns, whatever else. So almost everybody in the room. A couple of things that I've had to say this to myself more times than I can count. I had to learn the lesson more times than I can count. And that is this. What happens in your church congregational singing? What happens when you introduce a new song? Where does the singing go?
Down.
Okay, so if we're going to teach our church and waste our time teaching them a new song and running the congregational singing down, two things. Number one, it had better not be too often. And number two, it had better be worth the waste of their time. Do we get that? Churches that do too many new songs ultimately just paralyze their congregations. So it must be, we must do it we must sing great songs, and then when we feel we have a new song, wait until we have one that is excellent, and then we're really sure about it. Other people are really sure about it, then we go for it. And then, how does that mean for us? Well, that means we don't do too many songs in a year, you know. Just so you know, 2013, we wrote one song, Lift High the Name of Jesus. 2014, we wrote two songs, My Worth Is Not in What I Own, and Good Shepherd of My Soul. 2015, we wrote one song, Facing a Task Unfinished. 2016, we wrote 7 songs. This year, I've done 31 days where my main job is writing. I've done 61 days in total where I've tried to write songs, and all I've got is a chorus to Jesus Shall Reign. It's completely lousy. I mean, it's pathetic. You know, it's embarrassing, actually. But this do in remembrance of me. And he just kind of unusual pause he did. And in a way, it was actually echoing my childhood, the message I grew up with, was to in remembrance of me. It was also, as a young kind of type A, meal Christian. It's the whole idea that you can be preparing music for a service, and you can be like, do a beautiful communion service, and before you're out of the parkway, you can be wanting to, strangle this person in front of you in their car. And just the idea of how we have to keep doing it, because, how easy it is to forget. How quickly we forget. How quickly our hearts go away. So I wanted every verse to be about in remembrance. And we remember this and remember. So this kind of unusual just unusual thing that punched it out. So behold the Lamb who bears our sins away, slain for us. And we remember the promise made that all who come in faith find forgiveness at the cross. So we share in this bread of life, and we drink of His sacrifice. So again, and I kind of apologize in advance. We didn't do sheets for this. I wasn't. It was Stuart's class, and we were trying to find somebody to do it. And the last minute, I had to step in. So I will. What they are doing is they have promised they're going to do a document which is said everybody who's in this class, every song we study on a little pack. There will be a pack sent to you. You may have all the songs anyway, but there will be a pack sent. And if there's something in there you can use, please take it as a free gift from us with our gratitude and apology. So then let's think of the lyrics. How does the lyric composition of that work? So we obviously what we did was the overall structure of it. There's a sense of with everything in life, everything has to have clear direction for people to come with you. So if you're creating a conference vision, if you're creating a company, if you're creating a song, there has to be a clear linear movement. And Stuart Townend is a master at teaching this. So the 4 verses of Behold the Lamb, the first verse is a preparation for communion. The second verse is the bread. The third verse is the wine. The fourth verse is the response. Okay? Now, what we do is each verse is, then we wrap little themes around it. So, Behold the Lamb obviously is Old Testament prophecy. So we're taking a lot of Old Testament prophecy in the first verse. And in the fourth verse, we're taking a lot of the promise of till He comes. In all the songs that we write, we try to give the feeling of eternal, because that's how the Psalms are. That's how Jesus is. Jesus talks about hell more than anything else He talks about. And then the Apostle Paul, when he writes to these New Testament churches, he's constantly reasoning. Whether it's squabbling people or whether it's deep theology, he's saying we are eternal beings. Our songs have to be eternal. 1998 Spring Harvest Songbook, which at that point in British Christian history was the kind of the Bible for modern songs coming out in the church. Of 182 songs, 2 mentioned hell or heaven or any concept of eternity or judgment. Anyway, I hope that was completely unhelpful. Bill.
Keith, once you get a month's worth of melodies recorded or written down or something, how do you self-evaluate and determine which ones to throw and which ones to keep?
I don't know. It's a good question. All I can think of is that scene in When Harry Met Sally when they're asking about love, and the old woman goes, "It's like it's like when you know about a good melon." And it's I don't know. Here's the thing. You just know, all of you guys have been in that room in your church or in your home where you've been listening to a bunch of new songs to try and find one that works for your church. And then you just hit one. And you just know, when you first heard How Deep the Father's Love, how many of you were going to use that in your church? Did you have to ask somebody? Did you have to go to your therapist and sort of say, is this okay? No, it's just perfect art. Stuart just stumbled across it. None of his previous songs sounded anything like it. He didn't want to be a hymn writer. He wrote that. It was just a kind of an experiment. He played it to Dave Fellingham, who was the worship leader of his church, and he says, "I'm not sure. It sounds too old. Forget it." But I think it was. Anyway, let's not even go there. But the point was, you just know. And I'm so sorry to not be able to say this. There's something fresh. It's like in some ways it's like going to a restaurant. You know, somewhere the place that's got a unique spice or a unique way of cooking things. We are creative beings, you know, which is the danger in our conservative churches as we get so concerned about doctrine, which is so extraordinarily important, that we forget that actually we're not doctrine machines, we're human beings, you know. We like beauty, we like fresh, we like things that inspire us, we like things that our children like their hearts to be stirred, and we, you know, humanity meets at that place, and that's where Christ meets people, and that's why 20% of the Bible is songs, and why the Bible is such a high view of art, is because we shouldn't be boring people. And actually Christians shouldn't be known for being the kind of the middle of the road dull guys at best, and the kind of the judgmental crusty guys at worst. You know, judgmental crusty hypocrites at worst. We must in our creativity do that. I'm sorry, but I'm not getting anywhere. Maybe you know, honestly, Stuart is my kind of ultimate judge in many ways when it comes to melodies. But honestly, you usually know. It's that moment where you strike something that just feels fresh, and you usually just know. That's all I got. That's like the same thing as you usually knew when you heard that song that you just knew what you were going to do. There's two vague, nondescript answers. It's 0 out of 2 so far. I hope you're getting some good notes, everyone. Okay, here we go. Sir.
So, how did you and Stuart find each other? Do you have any guidance for the idea of collaboration?
Wonderful. Yeah, I think collaboration is the class tomorrow. There's 2,200 people coming to hear me and Stuart talk to each other about collaboration tomorrow morning. So I'll be going, well, Stuart, how are you this morning? I don't know, really. I'm just kind of sitting here, you know. So I'm going to kind of anyway. So collaboration. Okay. The first question was how did we find each other? Well, he wrote How Deep the Father's Love. I was sitting here. I remember where I was sitting in the church when I heard it, and I went, "This is the answer. This is what we need. This is what we need. This is what I want to do." And I was just psychotic about it, and I kind of started writing songs and found every way I could possibly find to get to him. And we eventually got for a coffee at an event, and we talked. And he went, "Okay, listen, my boss says we have to write a song together, and that you're really musical. So if we have to do it," he goes, "can you send me a melody and we'll see how it goes?" So I sent him a tune. I'd played around with one of Isaac Watts' melodies. You know, it's him, "Give to our God immortal praise. Mercy and truth are all his ways. Wonders of grace to him belong. Repeat your mercies in your songs." Or I kind of massaged the words and wrote, "Give to our God immortal praise. Mercy and truth are all his ways. Wonders of grace to come." And so he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, "Well, let's go through the life of Christ and just like we'll start with the Creedal hymn. Basic life of Christ, creed. What does Christians believe? What is the gospel? Let's go." And so he came up with that, and that was the start. So, and then after that, we were kind of stuck with each other, you know. There's so many things I've learned from that relationship. You know, I'll talk about some of them tomorrow. But he is an introvert. He is somebody who is passive. He is somebody who is impressed at almost nothing. And I am the opposite. I'm an extrovert, always driven, always going for a target, always with a bigger vision for the universe. And I've always got 40 new ideas, and he sits there just utterly bored by most of them. And then sooner or later goes, "That might work." And then, so that's kind of how it works. So.
Oh, wait. It's in a bookstore. Really? Yeah,
So what do you want to do? I mean, there were people getting in
marketing, you know, so here's something just for you, right? But then also I think that's not only a really helpful observation, but analysis of the difference in power relations, because I think as you were saying that, I think I see that, what you're describing in the African American community, I think I also see that in kids that I have in class who are from like urban poor, or rural, poor white kids who come from very like authoritarian churches where they have felt really kind of like, you know, pushed down. Those kids aren't excited about going to talk with the 80-year-olds either, you know. So that's an interesting thing to think about as you think about your own contexts. So I kind of alluded to some of the gifts of the millennial generation. Are there areas where were there particular challenges that to which the millennial generation is prone? I mean, you mentioned the iPhone culture. Also, I'll just mention, do any of you know the Nairobi Statement on Worship? It's a wonderful resource if you're thinking about worship. It talks about these kind of 4 different poles of relation to culture, that worship is always embodied in culture, but worship always transcends culture, so it goes beyond any one culture. And worship also is countercultural, right? So there are ways in which, when we think about millennials, we want to say, how is worship being embodied in this culture? What are things we can grab hold of? And what are ways in which worship needs to be countercultural and push back against? So what are ways particularly do you think?
I mean, you were part of this little group we had up at Calvin a few years ago, where we studied kind of the top couple hundred CCLI songs versus the top, couple hundred hymns, particularly looking at the issue of moral therapeutic deism and whether we felt like the modern songs were encouraging that. I think we concluded they at least didn't give you much ability to stand against it, though scholars are loath to say anything causes anything. But it was pretty amazing. When I talked to my students about, and I actually surveyed a bunch of my student leaders about some of these questions, and the main thing they said was they really are looking for songs that affirm the struggle that they feel. That they really, one of the great barriers for them is if they come into kind of a worship space or worship experience that just seems false, and the primary way they feel that it's false is if everybody's pretending that they just love Jesus all the time. And that's honestly what Adult Grace was really born out of. We need songs that are more honest about struggle. And I feel like sometimes we're afraid to tell them that we struggle. Or we think the music is just utilitarian. We don't realize the way it shapes and even projects the DNA of our church. And do people feel like they have to pretend that they're happy all the time to be a part of our community? I think we should always be thinking about that. So I think that's one of the things that I want to make sure, if you're thinking about engaging with millennials, you need to be honest about struggling. And you also need to understand, like the Nairobi Statement, that the church that you're part of is incarnate in a particular culture, but it's also part of a bigger church of people that don't sing or speak like us. And somehow you need to give expression to both those things. A particularity, but also something beyond your particularity. And there's lots of ways to get at that, but I think that's a goal we always try and think of, because these young people really, like you say, they're more aware of everything. And one of the things they're more aware of is that there are a lot of people with different experiences like us. And part of their plausibility structure for Christianity is, does it make sense that people who are different than us, who've grown up different than us, who've had different experiences? Or is it just a result of my kind of upbringing?
Because of your phone, and I think it inclines you to a man-centeredness, and we start talking about God-centered everything. I think there becomes a struggle, So Piper has a saying where he says, man is happy to be God-centered as long as he thinks that God is man-centered. And I think that's sort of what we get into. Even if you sell them on God-centeredness, it's because they know the world teaches a God that's man-centered. He did it because of you. It was just for you, just for me, just for me. And so that becomes a good kind of God, the kind of God I want, the one that's into me. What about the God that smashes your idols? What about the God that smashes the idol of self? What about the God that puts you in community with 80-year-olds if that's not your thing? What about the God that has all of these things that require a death of self when everyone else is saying live it up? And so I think there could be that challenge of the call to die for something that is not always immediate, and that even gratification, immediate. I feel good if I go and I help, if I'm on the front lines. What about that delayed commendation from our Lord? Is anyone talking about that? So I think that can be one of the struggles.
Yeah, that's good.